and ruthless conspiracy to censor the news, stifle dissent, cover up our mistakes. Cover up our mistakes.
We are again. Welcome another episode of the Union of the Unwanted. Let me remind you guys that we live stream. It's funny because we're not live streaming this one, but we do attempt to live stream every other Monday on YouTube, and then eventually the audio is available on all the audio platforms. The video will be available if it's not live streamed if for whatever reason. We do it on a different day, time, technical difficulties, whatever happens. If it's not live streamed on YouTube, it will be eventually uploaded on YouTube. So even if we record it on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever, it will be on our YouTube channel. So subscribe to us there while it still lasts, and then it will also be uploaded on Rumble. So those are the two primary spots to find our video episodes. I know often people want to put faces to the many voices they hear on the show, so that's a great place to do it. And then in the show description, we always have links to all the guests that are on the show, and so if you want to get to know them, find out who they are, and follow their work, please do. And then you can find all those links and more at the unionofthewanted.com. So I think that's it for the intro. Is there any topic you guys do want to open up with before we get the ball rolling? Because that's typically all we need, is a little topic to kind of spark the fire, and then the flames get out of control at some point.
We're waiting to see the results to come in from Honduras to see if the regime change will be in play over there or not. So that's what's going on right now over there. If anybody wants to talk about that,
how does that benefit? What is the U.S.'s stance on that right now? What do they want, and what's happening?
Well, it's very interesting. Over the weekend, Donald Trump pardoned a guy by the name of Juan Orlando Hernandez. And Juan Orlando Hernandez was the puppet president that took the place of Manuel Zelaya, then won a very argued fraudulent election in 2017, and was christened by the Trump campaign to go in there. Just like anything else, when it comes to Central and South America, there's a lot of allies, there's a lot of proxies. We want to make sure that, number one, we can slap IMF loans on these countries, take their resources for pennies on the dollar, and also make sure they don't form alliances with other countries that we don't like, other leftist countries that we don't like.
What's their policy towards Venezuela?
Yeah. Well, since Xiomara Castro got in, she got back in. Xiomara Castro got in 2021. She was the first female president of Honduras. She was the wife of the coup president, Manuel Zelaya, who was couped during the Obama administration with Madam Secretary. They removed him from office. And that's when the Juan Orlando Hernandez train got rolling. Juan Orlando Hernandez was in a Miami prison for trafficking. I think at one point he got caught with 400 tons of cocaine, literally.
Nice.
Him and his brother. I know, right? Good party was going on. But he was just recently pardoned over the weekend. So right now, the same party, which is the Libre Party, which is Xiomara Castro and the Manuel Zelaya, they were leading in the polls. They were running their candidate. Her name was Rishi Moncada. Supposedly she was leading, but there's been a lot of information out there, a lot of disinformation, a lot of propaganda, and it almost looks as if they're going to try to steal this election coming up. Donald Trump made a tweet, a Truth Social post, talking about the guy that he is supporting. Whitney Webb has put out a couple tweets talking about what's going on in Honduras. The person they're trying to push in, once again, we talk about the covert pushing of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, about the track and trace policies. What I've been talking about for a while, the danger of Donald Trump is that even though on certain situations, like, he can't do something that Biden can do, vice versa, right? He can do certain things that the Democrats can't do, and that's usher in this track and trace policies. The person that he is pushing for, Nasfura in Honduras, is tied into Howard Lutnick and a lot of AI companies, whatnot. So Whitney has talked about this in depth, whatnot. If he gets in, they can, number one, put an ally, put a fence, put a spike between them, Honduras, and Venezuela. when Xiomara Castro got into office, obviously Manuel Zelaya was couped right after he formed an alliance with ALBA, which is Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. They removed him. Xiomara reignited that relationship with Nicolas Maduro, that trade, talking about the Chinese coming in. They're not as socialist as you think. They're kind of like that democratic socialist, where they do nationalize some, of their resources, but they open the door for other countries to come in, and they've opened up the door to China to come in. So Donald Trump, the West, Israel, they want to get that out. They want to get their person back in play. Honduras is a little bit different than Nicaragua and Cuba, whereas if there's 4 American bases there, they have an Air Force base that has 1,500 troops there, right? So at any time you step out of line in Honduras, you can get couped tomorrow. So we don't know if she's going to cross the finish line. The existing party, the Libre Party, which is Xiomara Castro, Manuel Zelaya, the socialists, the alliance with Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, or they're going to be able to claim victory, shimmy up the machines somehow, right? Even though they have a very transparent, open election, the machines, the central machines, make the final decision. That's proprietary software there, right? If they can sidestep this and claim victory, then Trump will have his person back in. Juan Orlando Hernandez has just been pardoned. He's going to go back, and that place is on the map moving forward for the track and trace, Fourth Industrial Revolution moving forward.
And it will be a cocaine trafficking hub, I assume, as well?
I don't know if it will, because I think a lot of Juan Orlando Hernandez is the cocaine was still coming from the 3 main spots: Colombia, Peru, and I believe Bolivia. So I don't know if it was just another hub to kind of move stuff through. I don't know.
Stop over on the way to the USA and Canada.
Trading some of the country's resources for cocaine. It could have been so many different things involved. I don't know the depth of why. I just know he got caught with the cocaine. So, he's an actual drug trafficker. And Donald Trump just pardoned him, which shows you Venezuela is not about drug trafficking. It's not about it's not. And I don't know if you guys heard that latest headline where Peter Hegseth admitted Donald Trump denied it. They sent a second shot over to that boat because there was a couple survivors, and they wanted to make sure they killed them. You know what I'm saying? So now they're dealing with that. That's all over the mainstream media news.
He can never complain about Obama's double tap after that.
Never. And Obama did the same thing too, right? He bombed U.S. citizens at a wedding.
He started the drone assassination thing.
Yeah. Every single president has used those powers and killed extrajudicial. This is not something that is specific to Donald Trump. Obama did it. Biden did it. Clinton did it. They all did it. They've been doing it. They've been, killing innocent without due process. Covertly, overtly. It doesn't even make a difference nowadays.
Yeah. Well, what I find interesting is the people who live in South and Central America understand that their government is corrupt, and the people in America, despite the last 5 years, are having a hard time accepting that. And it's just like a very different culture, I think, just because it's been so long, the narco war has been going on, and everyone in America has thought we've got our stuff in order. There's no corruption going on, and I think a lot of people are waking up.
That's one of the conversations I've had with Jeff Berwick when we're down in Mexico together. So I asked him, why Mexico? He says, well, as far as governments go, it's one of the better ones to live under. And I said, well, why? How so? And he said, well, the people don't trust the government at all, and they don't even really listen to them. The government will tell them to do things, and they just go, yeah, whatever. He goes, so it's not so much that the Mexican people are necessarily awake about everything, but they just know that if it's coming from their government, it's bullshit. And they just disregard it. Whereas, as you said, Americans are like, oh, our government would never lie to us. It sounds, plausible, so they're probably not lying to us. But I guess the Mexican people just have a much cleaner view of, a more realistic view of what their government is and isn't.
But isn't that what's fascinating about the whole thing? Is so many times throughout my whole journey of uncovering lies and just lies in general, in big pharma, big food, big government, whatever it may be, that there's so many times that I'm like, this is going to be the thing that opens so many people's eyes. And it does, like, typically there are things that do, like 9/11, and when Epstein, I mean, I remember years ago having Nick Bryan on the show, having whoever, Whitney Webb before she was a household name, and talking about like the elites of the elites are all pedos and sickos, and they're all into dark art, and they're all into occultism, and they don't give a shit about anybody and whatnot. And you talk about these really dark topics, child trafficking and whatnot, and everybody look at you like you're a crazy person. Then when Epstein went from being a name that only us in our in our little world would talk about, and anytime you bring it up in a public atmosphere, people will look at you like you're crazy. Like, wait, you're telling me Bill Clinton's a what? You're telling me that, Alan Dershowitz is a what? You're telling me Bill Gates is, you bring up all the historical, all the different events that prove it, all the cover-ups. Like I said, from the Franklin scandal to Jimmy Savile to Dennis Haster. I mean, there's just endless amounts of examples of these guys. And then when Epstein became a household name and it was like undeniable, you're like, now when I bring shit up, people are going to believe me. Like, they're not going to look at me like I'm a crazy person, because the craziest of conspiracies are now becoming real. The 9/11, the fact that, we were talking about 9/11 forever, and now Tucker Carlson's talking about it, and other people are talking about it and questioning it. And yet what always stuns me is no matter how many things get uncovered, no matter how many lies are proven to be lies, there's still the people who will believe the next lie. It reminds me of the girlfriend who gets beat up by her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's like, "Oh, I'm not going to hit you again, I promise," and she just gets hits again. And it's like, no, these people are guilty until proven innocent. I don't believe anything they say. They have proven that they lie about everything and anything. And it's like, the way I look at it, it's like, instead of, I think the logical thing to do is assume everything is a psyop and conspiracy, and until proven it's not, instead of the
Right.
other way in reverse, which like the normies do. And so to me, it's like you said, it's always amazing that these events do open eyes, and it does it does seem in many cases like COVID to create some type of awakening at a rate that could only happen when a big event like that happens. But it's always amazing how many people go back to their everyday lives, and maybe it's ignorance is bliss, right? Like, you go down these rabbit holes, maybe you do believe these things are true, but what happens is you go down these rabbit holes, you realize how dark and scary and lonely and fearful you can be down there, because you come to the realization that, like, the world's a much darker, scarier place, and it's much easier to just put on Fox News or MSNBC and just see these idiots, argue with one another and pretend that they actually care about your well-being and whatnot. And that world, that illusion, is just a easier, better, safer, less scary place to live in.
Yeah. What you said about the abuse, I have been telling people for years, you are in an abusive relationship with your government, but you're also in a abusive relationship with your media. And I think that's what a lot of people are continuing to miss. And it's exactly like that. It's called a trauma bond. So like, a trauma happens and they lie to you, and people experience that as a trauma. I even know a guy who's a psychologist who started something called Post-COVID Trauma Institute. And he says we all probably have some kind of PTSD because of the loss and the grief and the shock and the trauma of all of the things that were COVID over the last 5 years, kind of continuing in the underground today. So like, a trauma happens, and then the media or the government comes along to say, oh no, that didn't happen. They try and like revise your memory, and then they do something nice for you and make you think that you care about, or, some people that believe it, that bounce back, they begin to think that, oh, everything's okay again. And it becomes just this cycle, and they almost get addicted to the cycle. Like, it's a chemical, psychological addiction process. And I don't know how people are going to break out of that unless they choose to. That's kind of like the beaten wife situation, that kind of has to be like, she gets to a breaking point and decides, I'm not going to take it anymore. So like, I think for each person that's different. What is going to be the thing that, that happens in their life that actually causes them to look at something? But I notice a lot of people kind of burying their head in the sand too. And I do think that it's out of comfort. I think like the discomfort of it all. Because when you do go down these rabbit holes, it's like a layer, like there's a layer of each of it. And you kind of have to take a step back and digest that for a while because it changes your perspective on everything. It changes how you hear all the information. It changes how you look at everything that you've been taught throughout your whole life. And I think some people, they're too attached to what they've been taught to let go.
Well, remember that well, some of you guys might remember that podcast Deborah Gets Red Pilled. I think some of us were even on that show. And
Yeah, it
so
was.
yeah, for people who don't know that show, it was this podcaster who listened to many of our shows and wanted to get his mother-in-law red pilled. So what he would do is that he would have each episode, he would have one of us on to try to red pill her on a topic. And I mean, we did, I mean, it was episode after episode after episode after episode. And he just kept saying, like, no matter how much we think we got her, like she's getting it, she's understanding it. And Brad, for people who are jumping in late, and Alex, we're talking about Deborah Gets Red Pilled, that show. And he was trying to red pill his mother-in-law. And she was, I believe she was a typical West Coast liberal, MSNBC loving, just kind of a Jen, whatever Jen she was. But even myself, like I remember I had like a 2 hour conversation with her. There was I felt like, wow, I'm getting through to her. And then you would always, listen to the next episode, or you would listen to, following episodes, and she was back to where she started again. And it was like, it's a brainwashing that is so deep in our DNA that it's almost, it seems like impossible sometimes for some people to snap out of it. And I almost feel like you need this whole generation that grew up with the media and this trust in the media to be, I hate to say it, to be gone almost, like for them to move on and have these younger, more skeptical generation coming up. And I do think, at least like in my personal life with my children and a lot of their friends, it seems like they're growing like and I always say this on the show, like the pendulum swung so far in one direction that now it seems to go in the other direction, where now it's like you have kids who are like laughing at furries and laughing, like using, the word transgender in like a humorous, tone, not in like we should, we should support them and what, like it almost seems like the pendulum went in the other direction where like they force fed people this ideology and narrative and perspective so much that now kids naturally want to rebel, right? And the main what was alternative, right? Because for a while being a furry or whatever was alternative, and that became the mainstream. So now it wasn't cool anymore. It was like this girl I went to school with that every day she used to, we used to wear metal. I was a metalhead, so I used to wear like Slayer shirts, Metallica shirts. She did too. She would wear like Marilyn Manson shirts, and then she literally loved Marilyn Manson. And then one day she stopped wearing Marilyn Manson shirts, and I'm like, why'd you stop wearing your Marilyn Manson shirt? This is like the first time in like a year I haven't seen you wear Marilyn Manson shirt. She's like, oh, my parents started listening to Marilyn Manson. And I'm like, oh, it's not cool. It's almost like Facebook. Same thing with like Facebook. It's like, why'd you stop using Facebook? Because my grandfather's on Facebook. That's why. And I don't want to hang out with my grandfather on Facebook. It's like, it's one of those things where, so I think that like the pendulum like kind of went in the other direction because of that. It like stopped being cool because it became so mainstream. So I'm hoping that like being a conspiracy theorist is now getting to that point where like, hey, it's getting cool, and it goes against the narrative, it goes against the mainstream. I just hope it doesn't swing so far in one direction where now it becomes cool to be a normie again. But
Well, what they're doing is there's a new generation that's not buying Israel's bullshit narratives, and they're also not drinking alcohol, which is throwing a real monkey wrench in this whole narrative process because it helps when you believe the lies and also when you're drunk or intoxicated in some way or you're distracted by that. And this new generation is not really into that, it seems, which is I think great, but I don't think that's a calculation that the beer companies made there's real problems. It's not just Bud Light. This is a trend away from alcohol consumption and a trend away from all sorts of type of buying patterns and the way that this younger generation views the trade-offs and benefits of car ownership as opposed to ride sharing and things like that. They grew up in a totally different era than the boomers who had a real easy, let's be honest, they had a real easy path in the aftermath of World War II. They got a lot of help with America being the financial center of the world and the Federal Reserve printing money like crazy. And so, their complaints about the younger generation, just buck up and get a job and everything. I get it, but like it's apples and oranges here. Like this new generation is navigating economic hardships that nobody has seen before. Coming out of college, let's say you actually have a degree that's worth something, if there is such a thing. But let's just pretend. You've got all kinds of weird challenges now. You may get priced out of the market. You may get replaced by some guy, some Pakistani who just came across the border who's on an H-1B visa. You may get replaced by AI. You may go into an industry that gets replaced by AI and like you're good at it, but next thing you know, there's holy shit. They can't buy a house, can't afford a car. 50-year mortgages and 10-year car payments is not the solution. That's indentured debt slavery for the rest of your life and student loan debt. So like there's a price that has to be paid at some point, and this younger generation is getting really fucked. And I think that at some point they're going to stand up for themselves. I hope they do. And change things because they could, if they wanted to, they could be a part of this. But right now, if you think you're going to vote for Donald Trump or Gavin Newsom to come and fix it, you are fucking delusional. You are not paying attention to things if you think that that's the answer. So hopefully, Ricky, everyone's waking up. Like, you wake up at different speeds. Maybe COVID did it. Maybe Trump coming back again did it for some people. I don't know. Maybe the shots, maybe watching people die suddenly and the media go, there's nothing happening. You're all crazy for believing that conspiracy theory. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's a fourth turning, all of it. But something's happening and something's coming. And it's hard to really predict what it is.
Well, I think the boomers are the ones that are pretty much lost. And I'm Gen Xer, so I'm really close. I'm right on that borderline. And recently, I had a friend. He was elderly, and he died of turbo cancer. He thought he had indigestion, went to the hospital, diagnosed with pancreatic and liver cancer, and 3 weeks later, he was dead. So I went to his memorial, which was about a week ago or so. And I was probably the only unvaccinated person in the whole church. I saw a lot of sick people there, and these were what I call my pre-COVID social club. And I even had a discussion with a guy I hadn't seen in a long time. He was about my age. We're about the same age, and he has bladder cancer. And he even said, there's something going on. He started off the conversation like this. He says, Dave, remember when we were young? It was rare if we knew somebody had cancer, maybe somebody in our family. Now it's everywhere. Then he said, something changed in the environment to cause this. Now he went through a whole different things of food, air, water. He stopped short of the shot. Now, I didn't want to broach that because I didn't want to be that guy at a funeral. But when I looked around, there was, probably a couple hundred people there. I looked around there, and I'm pretty positive I was the only one that didn't take the shot, and all the rest of them never even conceived. I don't think of even asking the question of what caused my friend's turbo cancer. To me and to everybody on here, it's obvious, but they weren't. So to go back to the original point, I think that the boomer generation and a good chunk of the Gen Xers are fucked. They ain't never going to wake up. Some may, like my friend. He might have the possibility. Now, as far as the younger generation, Thanksgiving, I was at my best friend's house. We've been best friends since second grade. And his daughter was there, and she is 20 in college, and her friend was there. So we were in the studio, you know, jamming out, making noise, and there's a little break. So I was like, well, of course I was, you know, I had a fair share of tequila in me. And I got this brilliant idea. Hey, y'all want to hear a song? So I threw on, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Crackamico's what is it? J is for Jewish or Donald Trump parody. And it's all about Trump selling out to Israel. I mean, it hits hard. And they actually laughed at it. So I was like, okay, maybe there's a hope with this generation. Now, you guys were talking about earlier, Charlie, you know, what's going on with them? I hope there's hope. I've seen a lot of the TikTok videos because I love doom scrolling for one. And there's a lot of the younger generation that are coming up with these things that are at least are revealing to me old school information, but at least they're talking about it and putting this stuff out. So I hope that there's hope for the next generation, because we're screwed as it is. And if it's not for them, we're really going to be screwed. Really going to be screwed.
Yeah, the drinking thing, though, it is kind of weird. I get a lot of the things because it's like, if I always said, like, when we were growing up, anything we wanted in life required money. So there was this desire, not so much for money, but it was a means to an end, right? So if we wanted a new album, we had to go work and make some money. If we wanted to go watch a movie, we had to work and make some money. But now, like, all the entertainment the kids are consuming are free with Wi-Fi, you know? So it's like, they don't really care about having a car to drive to the movies or drive to work or drive to whatever, you know. So it is a completely different lifestyle, and it's changing drastically, which, you know, people keep saying, and I think it's true. I think at some point, I think universal basic income is going to become something that's probably unavoidable. It's going to have to happen, because you just have all these kids and people who just aren't contributing, which means they're not making money, which means, like, what are they going to do? Just have a bunch of homeless people all over the place, and you know, I mean, which we already do have, so we just don't want more of them. But so it is interesting to kind of picture what the world might look like. I mean, you also see people not dating, right? They're not dating as much. You know, alcohol would help because everybody's better looking when you drink. So, I mean, maybe that would help if they start consuming more alcohol instead of less, you know.
Everybody's a 10 on a few beers.
Exactly. And everybody's charming, and yeah, it is kind of weird. It is weird. I mean, I also think that, like, maybe the drinking also has something to do with the social aspect of it, right? Like, a lot of people's social interactions via phone. If you're in person, like, what do? You're a social drinker. Like, hey, let's go have a drink, right? So if people aren't meeting in person, maybe the drinking becomes less frequent also. To quote the great Theo Vaughn, he says, sober sex is for children. So I love that quote. That's a great quote.
It could be contraindications to prescription drugs too. I mean, there's a huge percentage of them on prescription drugs. So, I mean, you probably shouldn't be drinking.
It's a big pill culture for sure. And, you know, you see a heavy pivot towards microdosing, alternative things with that, psilocybin, muscaria. So I think, but just on an economic level, I think a lot of these younger people under 30, I'm probably the closest to the Gen Zers. I'm 31, but I'm like the last year of millennials. So I think you're seeing more of like a pivot towards like hustling too. A lot of them, you know, I think you're going to see more black markets proliferating, more of an agrarian kind of setup with the fiat currency, you know, eventually imploding. I think they can see through the long-term projections of tanking Social Security, which is why I don't think they participate in the labor markets, you know, as much as, you know, boomers had expected. So I think that's where some of this bottlenecking is coming from. I expect that to continue as well.
What about when they need to get their stable coins for their UBI?
Yeah, that's true. That'll be another bridge to cross.
Well, speaking of hustling, a lot of them are getting into the podcast market. Brad and I were talking about before, like, a lot of these, like, podcast consultants that will help you book shows and do all these, help you get more likes. They're all like, younger than I'm like, I was podcasting before you were born. I'm like, what do you know about podcasting? Like, so it's,
And they have no following too. Like they present themselves. Let me help you grow a big following. They got eight people to listen to their show.
yeah.
Right.
Well, we talked about this. What's that motivational speaker that we were talking about, Brad?
Tony Robbins?
Yeah, Tony Robbins, right? It's like same thing. Like a lot of the people who do what he does, it's like, hey, I'm going to help you be successful. And then you go look into their careers. You're like, wait, the only successful thing you did was tell other people how to be successful. Like, you know, create something, do something. And
it plays off ignorance too, just like the news does. So all you got to do is know a little bit, and then find somebody who knows less, and then you can present yourself as an expert. I saw a guy on like Udemy, I think it was one of those online freelancing sites. Guy's charging $100 an hour, and I look at his thing, and he's actually getting work, and he's a podcast consultant. And one of his offerings is, "I'll get your podcast on every podcasting app. All you got to do is upload it to do that." Like you literally, it takes 10 minutes to do that. You got to sign, and he's charging $100 an hour to tell people how to do something. If they just spent 5 minutes searching it, they'd be able to do it in less than 10.
Right. They're opportunists. They're playing on people over 55, 60 years old, taking advantage of them. Yeah,
and corporations have a budget for podcasting too. And you have these people with a lot of money who don't want to deal with it. And so they go in, just do this guy. He says he can get us on every single platform. That must be difficult. And I'm like, we should be getting that money. Everybody on this,
It's an obligatory checkbox for these megacorps,
Totally. And Ricky, you're talking about Deborah Gets Red Pilled earlier. What a great show. That was an interesting social experiment. And you get 2 hours with Deborah. It's a very kind, sweet lady. Mainstream media, the brainwashing machine, gets 22 hours with her. And that's what you find when you talk to individuals. And you'll sit down with somebody at a bar, and they'll start to be like, it's very reasonable, considerable. Then they're going to go back and watch MS Now and Rachel Maddow and Mark Levin. It's crazy how you can tell what shows people are watching by the language that they use, because it sounds just like them. I don't know if they know that, but the default position for everyone, it needs to be distrust in all influential sources of media, whether it's the mainstream or whether it's alternative sources of media as well, because everybody gets things wrong. And if we put absolute trust in any source, we're going to either get manipulated or be led to believe something false by accident. And that's the thing about like waking up, is waking up is recognizing that the primary way that they propagandize us, which is through influential personalities that each of us in the groups that we're in are least likely to question. Not the ones that we inherently distrust, the ones that we want to believe, the ones that we see ourselves in. I mean, you put yourself in their position. How do I want to get somebody to believe a lie or to believe an implication from an out of context truth? It's not going to be like, for me, from Chuck Schumer or Kamala Harris. It's going to be through somebody like Donald Trump, who I think is funny and hilarious. And I want to believe him, which means I need to question him and criticize him a lot harder than the person I already don't believe. And that's such a difficult thing because confirmation bias is a powerful drug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was just going to mention that, really, to tell you the truth, that's the whole crux behind everything, is people aren't seeking the truth. They're seeking confirmation bias. The social engineers know that, and they prey on that. So, I mean, that's why we have such a society of red versus blue, Bloods versus Crips, because people already made that decision beforehand, and they're working backwards. They're not looking for the truth. They're just looking for the information that confirms their biases. And that's the biggest problem we have right now, because those social engineers know the species they're dealing with.
Yes, absolutely.
100%.
This is we are up against it. Have you seen that video that's floating around of a guy talking about a game that they play called Wolfpack, where the campers and the two wolves, and nobody knows who they are, and that the point of the game is that an uninformed majority will always lose to an informed minority.
Yep.
And so, knowing that, if you're the minority, you're going to make sure that you do everything you can to make sure that the majority is disinformed about what's happening, because you have to control them that way. So it's not a surprise that we're being lied to propagandized, manipulated, and all that. They literally have to do it. For the few to control the many, that's the tools that they have to use. But I think once you make people aware of it, it's like a magician seeing the dove in his back pocket and know that he's going to go there. Once you see that the first time, they can't pull that on you anymore. And you would think, because I did Deborah Gets Red Pilled at least 3 times, and the exact same thought you guys had, which is, I'm getting through. It's happening. I'm gonna, she's understanding this. And then I'd be back like 4 months later. We'd have a conversation, and I always go very easy because, like you said, she's very sweet and was a good sport about it and wanted to. It wasn't like confrontational or jerky or anything like that. And I think we all kind of matched that energy, and we're very like, let me just explain it to you, and not like try to make her feel bad. And I'd really take time to lay it out, and then it just wasn't there and I just thought, well, some people. That's my fault for making like an assumption that logic and reason is going to work. It's like, it's always going to work. If I just lay it out, you'll see it and you'll go, oh, okay, I get it now.
Honestly, that's the hardest part about COVID and about this digital ID thing, is you can't fight it with logic and reason. And there is a mass media campaign against us. And we saw how effective that was during COVID. I mean, most places you had to wear a mask to go in because most people complied. And like, we didn't have the numbers in the hospital to stop the mandates. So it is a numbers game. So you're absolutely right. They're playing that numbers game. And Ricky, I wanted to add Total Metalhead too, right here. So shout out to you. But I was going to bring up a movie clip about Amy Poehler talking about young people and money. Because it's so about the digital ID, I think, like how the change in the relationship to money has changed over time. She said something about like boomers' relationship to money was like, they had it in their hand, and then you come with Gen X, which I'm Gen X, and I forget what she said, but it's something like, is there really money? Is it really all about money? And then millennials, they're like, what is money? And you get to the young people and it's all digital. They never see the cash because they get all these subscriptions. They get their paychecks automatically deposited. So they really don't have the same relationship with money. And it goes to their social relationships too. They don't need to get in a car and go across town. They can just get on their phone. And they would rather do that. They even have social anxiety about being around people now. So it really is like a whole different culture. And Charlie, I just want to add one more thing before I give up the mic. I was watching your interview with Dr. Jessica Rose. I'm still getting through it, but something she said I totally agree with. And Ricky reminded me of it earlier. What ruined things over the last 5 years for me, or one of the things that has been ruined for me, is funny colored hair. Because like when that was a thing, like that was my generation's thing, is we started the whole funky color hair thing. You had to go get a punky color thing at a record shop. And now I see people and it tells you they're woke, they're liberal. It tells you something about how they think and how they see the world.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it's the total complete opposite. Kind of going back to music too. Like I'll see young people with Nirvana shirts and Marilyn Manson shirts and bands that I used to listen to in high school. And I'm like, these people they could be my children. That's how young they are, but they don't have their own music anymore. And that is not something that I would have ever expected to happen.
Yeah, I totally got the same impression listening to the Jessica Rose interview, because I just finished that up as well. And it was fantastic, Charlie.
By the way, that interview that's out right now on Macroaggressions is with Zoe Smith, so you can check that out. Serial killers in white lab coats, where we get into your background in COVID, and it's pretty dark. So everyone, please check that out when you get a chance to.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think moving forward, it's the common denominator across all the younger people. They don't have the same relationship to money. They don't have the tangible asset in their hand, the value of the hard work that's tied to that. And especially with a commercialized, digitized economy, they're going to be doing less and less physical work for the sake of moving ones and zeros. So I think really all it boils down to is they're going to be driven towards authenticity. That's always going to be the currency moving forward. And to Ricky's point, I think they're still going to be using money as a means to an end. It's just going to be in a more isolated environment. So they're going to have like these online kind of boroughs. It's going to be transnational, but it's not going to be local. And it's kind of one thing where I think we were talking about it in a previous episode where the dating market completely changed and the social outlook when you were in high school changed with the rise of social media, because back then, if you were, a young man, you were competing against your backyard. Now you're competing with 1,000 men across the world you don't even know. So I think there's a lot of that environment.
With fake pictures and fake stories.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
I wonder how much that relationship to cash not being a thing impacts people, because I mean, I remember valet parking cars and bartending for years and going home with cash. That's the goal. You got to go home with cash, right? And now cash is dead. I mean, Catherine Austin Fitz is trying to keep it alive, thank God. But it has become, we're moving into this digital world, and when it's automated, it's less real. When it's in your bank account, it's less real in a stack of money that you've got. So I wonder if that's just something that's, because they can't physically hold it in their hand, it changes their relationship. Maybe they'll get into silver and gold. Maybe that'll be the thing instead. I hope that'd be cool if they did. If this younger generation was like, the banking system is bullshit, we need something that's actually real, and they like piled into silver.
Yeah, it's tangible because you have the digital stuff, and so you go to like one of these betting sites, and it's easy to you sit on the couch and for 15 minutes you're watching a game and you're like, I just lost $500 playing digital blackjack. I'm an idiot. But it's so easy to keep pushing it because it's not tangible until later on when your bank account is empty. And to what you're saying, Charlie, I think if there's that tangible aspect of like gold and silver, I think that, I mean, because you can look at something, you can touch it, it feels more real. And so that's like a propaganda campaign I can get behind. Things that are tangible and less digital and more real world based.
Yeah.
Well, the one market that's never been bigger too is the collectibles market. I mean, that's something we haven't even touched upon, which is like people are going for shelters to hinge their assets to. So you're seeing a big rise in, reclaiming these baseball card collections, Pokemon, all kinds of things, tradables and things of wealth that can be sidelined intergenerationally.
And we're also, I'm noticing too, with the two things with technology. I was just talking to Hakeem Anwar from Above Phone today. And so we've got the younger generation is like super into privacy phones like that. Oh, nice. Pasta's holding up his gold backs as well. Gold backs. Get some gold backs. Yeah. They're fantastic. So privacy phones. And then the other end of the spectrum is these like pared down, very basic phones, not like jitterbugs necessarily, but more like almost like natural lighting, very few buttons. I don't know. It's like a simplistic type of technology. So it's weird. It's semi-Amish. You know what I mean? Like if the Amish built a computer, it would look kind of like, or built a phone. I've been seeing those starting to get popular as well. And so I think maybe the relationship with technology is the key here, because they grew up in an era where it's just, they've never known anything differently. But we've been living in a world built by boomers who didn't have that technology. I'm in the last graduating class from college that graduated without an email address.
Wow.
Got email the year after I left college. So like, and now I think about that. I go, how the fuck did I get anything done? Like, this is crazy. It was like registering for classes on a touchtone phone, like punching in the codes and all that shit. People hear that now, they go like, that's like Flintstones.
Foreign language. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a flip phone. I have my parents' old bag phone from back when my dad worked at AT&T when I was like, I was really small. And sometimes I'll just bring that places and I'll just walk around in like Kroger on this like, oh, it's got like a brick phone, like Zach Morris. And people just look at you like they aren't sure. And I'll give the bag phone to my friend. We'll walk around the aisles going, "Where are you?" I'm in, and so we both got, people are just very confused about it. There's nothing digital on it. There's no text messaging on it. It's just very basic call. And for the bag phone, it has this like super antenna that you would have on your car. And up until like 10 years ago, it was functional and it worked. It was excellent. But I can't remember the exact thing that they did, but they like severed the connection to it so people couldn't use it anymore. I think probably so they could hook people onto the smartphone.
Well, they
Yeah.
did with iPhones. I mean, they did plan obsolescence, right? I think it was either the first iPhone or the first iPod. It was one of the first big Apple devices that really, sold a lot. They were failing like almost perfectly after 12 months. So a year they failed, they had to be replaced. And then somebody sued them, and in court, they they realized that because obviously they got sued, they had to release their engineering documents and whatnot, and then they saw that they were engineered to fail in a year. And you see it happen all the time with phones. It's like your phone works perfectly fine until the new one comes out, and then they force you to get that software update, and then all of a sudden a perfectly good phone can't hold a charge, and this happens and that happens, and so they just kind of force you into buying the new thing. And I have friends of mine that are engineers, and when they, are on a project, one of the first things that they ask is how long does it have to last? Things, because you have a budget, and if you're trying to meet that budget and just make it last as long as is necessary and no longer. And that's how everything's designed. You go into an old grandmother's house, they have a microwave that still works, a TV that still works, they have a bunch of stuff that still works. And you go into a modern house with modern stuff, that stuff's all a couple years old because it just keeps failing after a couple of years. And so it's like we're all just kind of forced into this machine of this consumer materialism, of just constantly buying stuff that doesn't. It's like if technology keeps advancing and keeps getting better, why are we keep getting sicker? Why are things lasting less time? Why, there's all this evidence that like, we keep reinventing the wheel, and living like our primitive ancestors is a healthier, better physically and mentally for you. And we're eating too much. We're eating too much crappy food. Like sometimes I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, you only eat one meal a day." I'm like, "Yeah," but like, "Oh, that's not good for you." I'm like, "It's not, because our hunter gatherers went to the convenience store and ate every hour." Right? I'm like, "What are you, an idiot?" I'm like, we're designed to go long periods of time without eating. I'm like, "What we're not designed to do is consume preservatives every time we put something in our mouths and be around poison, paint or whatever modern technology, put on deodorant that is full aluminum, wash your hair, twice a day when you take a shower, and take all the natural oils out. Like there's all these unnatural things we're doing, and then we fix it by saying, "Oh, now I have this issue. Now I need another unnatural pill or remedy to fix the unnatural lifestyle that I'm living." And it's just like, we just keep getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and not even like
that goes back to Rockefeller and Edward Bernays's legacy. I mean, Edward Bernays's whole thing was a consumerist. He knew that people needed a purpose in life, and he created a whole marketing campaign, which our government and every regulatory and public regulatory agency ate up about lifestyle. And they really hammered it home, like with the whole 50s and 60s culture. And from that point forward, we've been a consumerist society, and it really never died down. I mean, he might have died, but his legacy lives on. And the Rockefeller thing, that just goes back to pharma and medicine, but we don't have to get into that if we don't want to.
He died at like 100-something years old too. The guy lived forever, and he worked with like 5 administrations. And there's a clip of him on David Letterman when he's decrepit and he's disgusting, and he says the word titillating way too much, makes you want to barf. Where Letterman asked him about being, what's the thing with you being a doctor, and I can't remember his exact quote, but I think I played it for you the other day, Ricky, where he's, "What's up with a doctor?" And Bernays is like, "Well, it's if you call me a doctor, people are more likely to believe me." And that's totally like that influence by symbol and just by the public presentation of someone as someone to be trusted, even if there's never been no evidence that they've earned any amount of trust.
Well, as the actor who played Doogie Howser on TV, I mean, I bet you they treated that guy like a doctor just because he dressed like one on TV.
Yeah, he got a lot of gay dudes off of that, riding the back of that.
I saw him.
Authority.
I saw him zooted out of his gourd at Club Utopia on Millennial New Year's Eve because I was there. Saw him in the
He
bathroom.
didn't do a testicular check, did he? Because he probably offers that when he walks
No,
around.
but he was higher than giraffe balls.
That's a great joke.
But so yeah, there's some great stuff in that famous Eustace Mullins book about murder by injection that has all kinds of coverage about the manifestation of the AMA and going back to the petrochemicals with pharma and the Rockefellers and their involvement. And it's true that it's just we're getting poisoned further and further day by day. And I think going back to some of the things that we're talking about with the younger generations is I think they're very attuned to that and waking up to that. I mean, we definitely see I know at least for here in Connecticut, in my area, a lot of people are going 4 or 5 families at a time to split a calf. They're going back to red meat. They're staying out of the supermarkets as much as possible, and they're very attuned and aware to what they're spraying the skies with. So I think there is definitely a cultural sea change tremendously in people under 30, and it's just a matter of strangling those and trying to get to those boomers that are still able to be saved in that respect.
Well, to be able to buy half a cow, to get half a cow, you have to be able to pay for it. And at least a lot of farmers don't do digital currency. So you have to go there and hand them cash, write them a check. I'm a member of a private member association to get my beef. And they actually do take digital money. They would take gold backs. They would take crypto. So they're one of the few that actually have an online presence that would take pretty much any kind of currency, but they're trying to go completely out of fiat entirely. And they're one of the few farms that actually do that. Mm-hmm. But I'm feeling like they're not going to survive if they can't put a roof over their head, if they can't feed themselves. And there's something coming. Like there's a bubble with housing there, and the housing market is insane. They're all living with their parents now because they can't afford to live on their own. Even my generation that was supposed to go to college and be halfway through your major career can't afford a house. I was just looking at the cost of things in Mexico versus here, and the cost of living is much better there than it is here. And it got exponentially worse over the last 5 years. And we're seeing it go even further down the toilet. And they're pushing the digital ID even more lately. I just heard something else about you can't fly now, even with a passport, unless you're going to get like a $45 fine for flying with a passport and not getting your real ID, something like that. So what are the younger people going to do to push back against this? Are they just going to like let it roll over and then we'll have digital ID and digital money and then have to go forward with that? Like, I haven't really heard any solutions, especially with the younger crowd, that are going to stop the digital ID, really. It's mostly people like us, the smaller numbers, people that are even aware that it's happening, that want to do something about it to stop it.
Yeah, these trends are hard to change and stop. It almost seems like you can't. And before I forget, The Big Secret, it's something Zoe was talking about, the whole history of the Rockefellers and the AMA. It's probably one of the better documentaries that really go through the history of it. And I had Dr. Suzanne Dowd on when the film came out. I had her on a couple times. She's awesome. She did the film. It is on YouTube. I just found it on YouTube. So weirdly enough, some stuff is back on YouTube. You can find it. The Big Secret medical history film. Just look it up. You can find it. But I
don't have a documentary, but it's in my book too. It's called The COVID Code: My Life in the Thrill Kill Medical Cult. And that's chapter 6 and 7 when I talk about human experimentation and eugenics.
And that's great. Yeah, we'll have to make sure we put that link in the show description for people. Another great, speaking of great documentaries, MAFA 21, another great documentary about eugenics, MAAFA number 21. James Corbett's told me that one years ago, and it's still one of my favorite documentaries in regards to eugenics. So definitely check that out. What the hell was that?
Human experimentation and eugenics, by the way, is a perfect title for what happened, for what was going on during COVID. I mean, that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And that's why I went there. I was a medical coder during COVID, and I wasn't a conspiracy theorist. I did think 9/11 was an inside job, but I wasn't a conspiracy theorist beyond that. And I was, I guess my job was to look at records and then bill insurance. So I knew there's no pandemic, there was no new virus, and they're getting bonuses for what they're doing. So they're financially incentivized. And every university, every regulatory agency, just universally in lockstep did the exact same thing. And I'm like, that's not normal. Even for the hospital industry that I've been in for 10 years, that wasn't normal. Usually there would be like some level of gray area between implementing something that big or some sort of pushback, and there was nothing. And so I had to know where, and the coding system was what they were using. So I needed to know who created the coding system and how are they manipulating it. And I did not expect to find eugenics at the bottom of that rabbit hole, but that's absolutely who created it. And the entire reason behind it was literally to lie with statistics so that they could monitor their eugenics. I literally call it the measurement system for their eugenics programs, because it's eugenicists who created it, and they intended to track and trace every bit of information to basically create a digital ID. They just didn't have the technology back then. They were using all their information bases though. The Census Bureau, every national reporting agency. There was even this place called Cold Springs Harbor in New York, which is still working today. It's a biolab. It was the Eugenics Records Office, and that was where the AMA had their first cancer registry there, and they were literally bringing people in and taking pedigrees of people. And then the Harrimans and the Rockefellers were using that information to enact their eugenics program. So they could tell how much money you made, what ethnicity you were, where you came from, who you're related to, how many babies you have, if they lived, what kind of health things you have. I mean, that's really why the system was created to begin with, so they could collect all that information.
And how much information do you think they collected during COVID with all those nasal swabs?
I think and actually tomorrow I'm going to be recording an interview for a case that is in the city of Pasadena. There's a criminal investigator who works for the police department who is suing the city of Pasadena for taking his DNA and selling it to China, and he has the evidence, and we are going public with it.
Nice.
It's in the courts. He's been suing him for 3 years, and the courts don't want to hear him. So we need the public to know about it. And so I'm going to be the first one to interview him and have him tell his story. And he basically found that he did not want to take a PCR test. I think he was saying no to the masking and definitely no to the vaccine. And then they're like, well, you're going to have to take a PCR test, because he was the only one who said no to the vaccine, I guess. And so they were really putting pressure on him to get this test. So they suspended him without pay. They took away his vacation. They didn't give him his back pay. And then they made him get this PCR test if he was going to come back to work, and he had to because he has kids and has to take care of them. And so he ended up doing the PCR test. And I mean, he's a criminal investigator. He's not the guy to screw with. So he did his homework and figured out who owns the lab and where is all and how much money they're getting, because there was also CARES incentive money paid to the city for COVID relief. And one of the things was they got paid to run COVID tests. So these people were paid millions of dollars to open this COVID lab. And he found that the machinery, it actually says in the description of the machinery, it's made by Thermer Fisher something. I forget the name now. I'm totally blanking on the name. I'm going to get an infographic for it tomorrow, though. The machine that does this PCR test can collect your DNA on it. It specifically says it can collect your DNA and the expression of DNA. And it gets it from the sample, then it puts it into some AI form, and it can send it electronically to a lab. Well, this guy was contracted with BGI Genetics in China. So that's espionage right there that they're guilty of. And it's a RICO ring.
But not surprising.
Yeah.
That's the new frontier, right?
And that was just one city. So imagine how much of that was actually going on during COVID in every city across the country. Because I think this isn't an isolated case. I think this is the one where they got caught.
Well,
Yeah.
23andMe was they were using your giving it to China. There's some link between 23
Israel.
and Oh, right. Like, wasn't there some link? I do remember, I think, reading the story about how they were linked to some Chinese company that was keeping your DNA. So why wouldn't you, right? I mean, why, if if you want to gather everybody's DNA, why not, put a front company like 23andMe out there and keep everybody's DNA? And then there was some,
Yeah.
speculation about
Well, one of the things that I found during my research was there was a partnership between LabCorp, which you guys have probably all seen LabCorp cars running around your own towns. They're like they're what they call like a send
Blood
out
testing.
lab. So like
Yeah.
so hospitals will get PCR tests, blood tests, urine tests, whatever, and they won't do it in their hospital. They'll give it to like a courier that'll be in a LabCorp car, and they have their own machines. So they teamed up with a data mining company called Ciox. Ciox got bought out by Datavant, became a public-private partnership with like 500 members that are all these like big tech oligarchs people that you can look up. I was told one of them is actually Vivek Ramaswamy at the very top, who invested in this company, and I need to look at that. But somebody told me in a research group, he was in the Netherlands, that he had gone down that rabbit hole and found that Vivek Ramaswamy had like funded it. But I went to that website, and this was like 3 years ago. So before the Trump administration came in, brought Larry Ellison in and said, we're going to be able to look at AI. We're going to be able to use AI to look at your blood and create a therapeutic to kill your cancer designed to your DNA. This was many years before that.
An AI vaccine designed to your DNA. Yes.
Right. I've been saying that is in my book, because I went down the rabbit hole of this particular partnership, public-private partnership. And I found that on the front of that website, it says, we want your medical record information. We want your medical claim information. We're going to put that together with your entire medical history and your genetic information. Thermo Fisher Scientific, thank you. And we're going to create therapeutics and vaccines created to the individual genome. That's what it said on that database. And it said we need a massive amount of data to train the AI in order to do that. So that's what COVID was. It was a data mining operation to get your DNA so they can train the AI to do this. And it was a money laundering operation for the people collecting the information.
Now, with this proliferation of cancer research, I mean, the terrible cancers and whatnot, how much research have you done, Zoe, into the commissionable rates with which chemo is administered, and what's your thoughts on B17?
Nutrients are good, definitely B vitamins. I have looked into the cause of cancer, like done a lot of research on that. I did an interview with David Raznick, who's actually going to be on my podcast tomorrow. He worked with Carrie Mullis originally, but he's also studied cancer for 40 years.
Zoe and I've had these conversations about eugenics and the direction, how this has been a long game planned out by these maniacs for 175 years. They've been working on this stuff, and it's just now the technology is here to do it in ways that they only dreamed of in their psychopathic delusions. But what J.D. Rockefeller would do right now with genetics, holy shit. He'd kill the whole planet if he could. And that's the direction these people are going.
Don't forget, Charlie, you got to sprinkle in a couple world wars here and there to help with the eugenics as well. A couple regime
certainly
changes
doesn't
over
hurt.
there.
It certainly doesn't hurt. It keeps the cortisol levels high, and it keeps a generation of men from reproducing. It's perfect for the agendas. And of course, we've got another one probably on the schedule somewhere at Davos, or wherever the next Bilderberg is for maybe 2026, some hot conflict to look forward to. So
I can't imagine us trying to go into Venezuela. I mean, that would just be sick. I think it was I don't know what rank he got to, but Larry Johnson, who goes on Judge Knapp all the time, he says Venezuela is Spanish for Vietnam. If you think Vietnam was a rough terrain, wait until they go into Venezuela with all the jungle and the Amazon and the mountains, and they could take the airport, but that's a heavily armed country now, right? And that's not normal in Latin America, right? Most of the citizens aren't armed. But after Hugo Chavez was kidnapped about 20-something odd years ago, it was about 15 years ago, whatever it was, he implemented this program where there are like, I forgot what you would call them, master at arms of these villages that have keys to these sheds that open on up. Everybody takes a gun, go to your spot, guerrilla warfare, here we come. The imperialists are coming. It would be very, very, very bad. But there's a lot of oil there, and there's a lot of gold. So I don't think these psychopaths that you talk of, well, they got to outweigh. Well, what can they do? They're dirty commies. Let's go get them.
What do you guys make of all the Venezuela stuff? It's like a lot of war. I try to beat a lot of war drums on a lot of different fronts, and I think World War III is eventually going to be in the works. I don't know how soon or how far away it'll be, but they definitely want to keep people in fear of it.
I think they
always had this colonizing imperialist mindset when it comes to Latin America, the Monroe Doctrine and everything for quite some time, right? I've gone down there quite a bit to different countries. I've been down to about 7 countries, I think, in the last 3 years. Was supposed to be in Honduras over the weekend, did not make it, got too much shit going on with my family issues. But I definitely will be in Nicaragua next year for their election. But I mean, for quite some time, America, that's been their backyard. The game is you go in there, you extract the resources, you keep the country as destabilized as possible so you can extract those resources for pennies on the dollar. We also want to make sure we're the dominant currency of the world. So we thrust, once we get our dictator in or our puppet government, we get slap these crazy IMF loans on them, so therefore we can kind of legally take their resources. What was it called? The Economic Hitman, the book, Charlie, I think you've talked about it before.
It really is the book that changed my life. I read that in March of 2007, Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins.
Yeah.
And it just really laid it all out, and it enslaved them with debt. It's way easier. And you get them into it by selling them on these infrastructure projects, hydroelectric power plants, nuclear programs, highways, whatever, coal plants, fisheries. You get them into these predatory loans, tell them it's going to generate this much income when it's not, and they'll fall behind in the payments, which they're designed to do. And then they'll be in debt to the IMF and the World Bank. And then they can extract things from them. Like they can make them privatize their fishing industry and sell it off to Goldman Sachs, or vote in a UN resolution a certain way, or they can, allow some U.S. military base to be there. But whatever it is, it's a bad deal for the country, but it's because they fall behind in the payments to the bankers. And this is not theoretical. This is what John Perkins was doing. He was an economic hitman. He was working for a company called Maine, which was like Halliburton. And he would go into these countries and say, you got great topography here, like a great setup for a hydroelectric power plant, like a dam situation. We generate all this electricity. You have power to this city over there. Your kids will learn to read at night with light bulbs and things like that. It paid off for 15 years. This generates this much. It all pencils out. We got the money from the World Bank. They already said you're good for it. $2 billion. Like they'll give it to you tomorrow. Sign on the dotted lines. Oh, and by the way, if you don't, Jaime Raldo and General Trujillos, right? They take you up in your private airplane and it blows up. Yeah. So it's the silver or the lead with these deals too. So if once the bankers are in, and I don't know where they are. I don't know what stage Venezuela is with.
Well, they rejected a lot of the bankers. They rejected a lot of people coming in. Syria for many years, Bashar al-Assad refused to let the IMF come in. Well, when Jelani came to the White House a couple weeks ago, guess where else he went? To the IMF. He went over to get his loans.
He did.
So
I'm
that
sure
was all.
We'll remind everybody that these are Rockefeller institutions.
Yes.
World Bank, the IMF, the United Nations. These are Rockefeller institutions. This is not the world police coming to save you. These are depopulationists, eugenicists that are running the world and have a sick mentality of if it'd be a lot easier to control the world if it wasn't for all these fucking people.
And the reason why these countries had these revolutions and have moved to these kind of socialistic style governments, and once again, I try to explain, it's not like an Engels or a Marxist type of socialism. It's a collectivism, right? It's pulling together their resources to fight off the empire so they can survive. They want their national sovereignty. The people of these countries who choose these governments want the right to decide what happens with their resources, want the right to decide to pick their leaders. So that's what it's about. Venezuela's oil, most of it was owned by the West at one point. Yeah. But when, they had their revolution because they had a two-tier society and the poor, were uprising. And that's mostly how you see a lot of these governments. When you were talking about Mexico earlier, Charlie, yeah, they understand that these people that, there's so much corruption plugged into the Mexican government that no matter who's there, they're going to be involved with that corruption. They have to do that business. But these governments that do thrive are the ones that put themselves on the side of the poor. Claudia Sheinbaum is doing exactly what AMLO did, and that's putting herself on the side of the poor. She's promised to build 1 million houses in her term, and she's well on her way of doing that. So even though they understand there's corruption, they do see these people putting themselves on the side of the poor, and that's why they'll stand behind these governments like they do in Nicaragua with the Sandinistas and Daniel Ortega, like they do in Venezuela with Nicolas Maduro and the Chavistas. They nationalized their oil, once they eventually kicked out the West. Same thing with Cuba. Cuba didn't have, that's the problem. Cuba doesn't have the resources that Venezuela does, right? But that's what's going on right now. There's a lot of gold. There's the biggest oil reserves in the world. There's more oil in Venezuela than there is in Saudi Arabia. And the West wants it back. The companies want it back. The Rockefellers want it back. They want to get back in there. They want the oil back. This guy's not playing ball. They've used sanctions for years. Sanctions are designed to sweat a country so much, put so many, constraints on them, make it so stressful that the people of their own, turn against their own government in that country. So even though there's been movement inside Venezuela, there's been movement inside Nicaragua, there's been movement inside Cuba, the majority of the people there in those countries, I believe personally, still stand by those governments. It might be a thin margin now in Venezuela. Venezuela is very different than Cuba. Cuba kicked out what they call the bourgeoisie. They're all gone. They had to leave the island. They had to get the fuck out of there or they were going to get hung. Venezuela still has the bourgeoisie there. They still hold power. They still operate, in Caracas. They still have the goods and services. But there's a specific bourgeoisie there that's more nationalistic that said, you know what, we're going to roll the dice and we're going to go and stick behind the Chavistas and Maduro rather than go with the West. But there are oligarchs in Venezuela that want, the West back in there. So, I mean, it's a complicated situation, but I think a lot of this has to do with China. Since China has said we're no longer going to export our, or the way they get all these, these rare earth minerals out of the ground. They understand, they have a method, I think, the Chinese, in which they don't destroy the ecosystem that's there and kill everything around it. When the United States extracts these rare earth minerals, they destroy the whole freaking land. They destroy everything. But since China says they're no longer going to export it to the United States, I think the United States started freaking out. That's why you see this going back up with Venezuela. You even see Nicaragua, not Nicaragua, excuse me, Nigeria come into play, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? This whole thing with the Christians getting slaughtered and Donald Trump, when we know that the CIA through USAID had been funding Boko Haram, right? To present the solution, you must create the problem. And the United States is great at doing that. That's what the CIA does. So all this is in play right now. Since Donald Trump has gone and talked to Xi Jinping has since lifted the ban and said, okay, we're going to export some of the rare earth minerals to you. We need them for our phones, for our computers. I mean, you guys would probably can educate me on everything that is needed in the fourth industrial revolution. I just know the countries that have them and are holding them, and they're trying to defend off the West from getting them.
Well, what's the truth? What's the truth on Nigeria? So I see, because I talked to a lot of people on the left and right, and like I said, you can kind of tell where their talking points are coming from. One of the ones that's come recently is we have to stop the Muslims in Memdami because of the Christians being killed in Nigeria. My first thought is Memdami was a rapper whose mom is a Hollywood director who Mr. Cardiman.
Milk toast. Milk toast.
Right.
You know, milk. That's the whole thing with a lot of these people freaking out about Mandami becoming the mayor of New York, yet they're okay with Donald Trump bringing in Jelani, who is an actual head chopper who had pictures of severed heads in his hands and posted them on social media. A real, you know, he had a rough past, they said, Charlie. He had a rough past, but we like him now.
Mistakes were made, Pasta. Mistakes were made, as Rumsfeld would say.
Not to win.
With Nigeria. Nigeria is a country that is half Christian, half Muslim. Different areas a little bit more Muslim than Christians. Boko Haram has been killing people. They're the ISIS of Africa. However, I think his name was it Peters, Senator Peters, or was it Congressman Peters back in February, said he pretty much exposed at a hearing that the CIA had been funding ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram. They knew this, that this is the money. See, a lot of the money that the people were concerned about, the woke folk who were concerned about, how can you give, classes on gender reassignment in Bangladesh? How can you, put money for women in Afghanistan that they don't even get the money? The Taliban's going to take the money and stuff. That was just a front. The CIA is going to CIA. They're going to be doing this for so long. We learned this from the Iran-Contra scandal. They've been funding these radical groups to go in there and create a problem. Since the rare earth mineral ban came on, the United States West started freaking out a little bit. Where are we going to get our rare earth minerals? Where are they at? Well, they're in certain places. They've had this problem with Boko Haram. Boko Haram has been funded by the CIA. They killed more Muslims than Christians, but since it was in a predominantly a higher Muslim area, I guess they can say that more Christians were killed. Like the percentage was a little bit off. They twisted the numbers. Boko Haram doesn't care. They'll kill just as many Muslims as they do Christians. It's not about killing any type of minority, whatnot. Really, to tell you the truth, what's really happening is the guy Jelani we're funding. He's killing minorities. He's killing Alawites, Druze, and Christians, right, in Syria. And that's the guy we in Israel are funding right now. That's our guy over there. We don't really care about Christians being killed. We killed off how many Christians in Iraq, how many Christians in Syria. I mean, we've done it ourselves. So they're conflating this bringing back this whole thing, and it really does work. I go on this Christian radio show on a Saturday from 10 to 2. My very first show, they started talking. They played a video about this. Christians are being persecuted. Donald Trump can go and yell and say Christians are being persecuted, but it really isn't about Christians being slayed. It's once again about the rare earth minerals that we want that are loaded, a lot of oil too, in Nigeria.
You know what? It makes a lot more sense when you say you laid it out that in Venezuela, it's not really a narco war that's happening. That's just a front for it's a resource war. And that makes more sense because you look at like all the events that have happened in America that we can uncover, like the Lahaina event and the thing in North Carolina and even in Texas. And it's all about resources. It's about data centers and it's about, collecting resources. So that makes sense. But I've been wondering a lot lately, and maybe you can tell me this. Nobody can deny that narcos are very powerful and they have a lot of money. They may be one of the only groups that has a comparable amount of money and control to the members of the WEF and the big tech oligarchs. So what is their relationship to the WEF and the big tech oligarchs? Are they in bed with them? Because
Yes.
I've been wondering that.
The CIA, during the Iran-Contra scandal, we learned how much more. Like, in other words, the cartels can't operate without the help of the CIA. They need their help with their planes. I mean, they made movies about this. Air America, if you ever seen that movie too, as well. You know, I think his name was his name Barry Seal or something, the guy who used to take off from Arkansas.
Yeah, Barry Seal.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great scene when Tom Cruise played the part, and you had DEA, FBI, and I can't remember the third agency. They got him in the, they have him in handcuffs. They have him in the jailhouse, in the courthouse, and they get the governor on the phone, right? The governor calls, it's Clinton. He's obviously calling. And, Tom Cruise is offering all the agencies, hey, man, if you let me go now, I'll give you a Cadillac. And they're like, well, why would we do that? He goes, because I'm going to walk out of here anyways, right? So you might as well let me go. And all of a sudden they're like, uncuff him, let him go. And they're all pissed off. And he's like, you should have took the Cadillac. The CIA has been tied really to get these drugs inside this country. And Zoe, this is something that we need to talk about. What's really upsetting about the whole Venezuela situation, right? They're selling it as a fentanyl situation of them bringing in, this is giving them the right to kill them, the extrajudicial murders. It's murder. It's crazy. It's against the law. Even though it's at the high seas, it's not in our area. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution is supposed to go along with the United States government. So what we're doing is illegal, not to mention all the treaties we signed. But the thing that's really upsetting to me is that we are missing the national discussion. 0% of fentanyl comes from Venezuela. I'll say that again. 0% of fentanyl comes from Venezuela. Those boats he's blowing up would have to refuel a minimal of 20 to 25 times to reach the American shores. So unless there's an Exxon or a Mobil out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, what is he doing over here? I mean, this is madness. But the real problem is, Zoe, we're not talking about why we have a national crisis on why so many people are addicted to opioids in the first place. If you look at 2013, that was the highest amount of prescriptions written by opioids from doctors in the United States to their patients, to the tune of 250 million prescriptions written. We have a drug problem. We have an addiction problem. Where does it come from? Once again, big pharma. But they'll never talk about big pharma. They'll put it on the cartels.
So what you're telling me is the big pharma cartel joined with the narco cartel, and they are the same thing. That's what you're telling me.
The big pharma cartel,
Which it makes sense because
are they connected to the CIA? The CIA is doing that dirty work over there. That's who's bringing in all the drugs. That's how it's allowing it to come in. This is not China doing it to get back for the opium wars. This is the fact that the supply and demand, a lot of it is made in Mexico and then brought in from materials they do get from China. But guess what? 98% of the drugs we take in the United States, prescription drugs, come out of the ground in China, and we buy it from them anyways. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that they're to blame. The problem is we are having, I do think, Zoe, they're all connected, right? They understand. When you talk about Operation, Phoenix, when they took 150,000 North Vietnamese and put them in South Vietnam as an experiment, Tavistock, to see how they would react if you just drop people over there. Yeah, that was going on. There was still a bunch of people who goes, okay, as this is going on, who gets the resources? Who makes the money here? Who makes the money there? So I think it's all these parties that are working together, Big Pharma, the CIA, the cartels. You know what I'm saying? They work hand in hand. They create the demand, and these guys take care of the supply, and they're all tied together. And the banks are too.
I think it was the drug trade in the crash of 2008. Somebody said the only thing that kept the global economy alive was the illegal drug trade and the money that was laundered through the banks. So they're going hand in hand. I mean, the fact that the CIA is the biggest drug distributor in the world, to me, it's not shocking. Yeah. I look through the history.
The biggest. The biggest, Dave, right?
Yeah.
The biggest.
I've met
neighbors. Freeway Rick Ross. You guys know who Freeway Rick Ross is?
Yeah, I met him too.
Oh, yeah.
I've met him.
Yep.
I've had
Wow.
him. Yeah.
One of my neighbors was an Army Ranger, and he said he probably shouldn't have told me this story, but he said one time he was in a foreign country doing an op. They'd just gone in to kill what were basically narco terrorists in that country. And then CIA shows up and they load up all the drugs and they take off with it in a plane. And that was when he learned how corrupt our government was.
Yeah, that almost sounded like Celly Castillo's story from back in the day of the Iran-Contra affairs. He tried to blow the whistle on them doing that, and they're like, yeah, that's the CIA's. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
In part, it was Bush's privatized CIA, the enterprise, that was running with Ollie North, that was running that it's when the CIA is sort of off the clock. Bush had a falling out with the CIA. There's some problems with them, and they started a splinter cell. I think that's what Norman Mineta was referring to when he said there's a second government, and that has its own, doesn't answer to anybody, and has its own military, and has its own resources, and has its own funding mechanisms, and it is in charge. And I think that's the group. I think the enterprise group, that Bush, Rockefeller extension, Kissinger, Anglo crew was real. And they were the ones that, of course, that sort of accidentally got themselves on the radar with the whole Iran-Contra thing, and that's when the general public started to realize, hey, what's this arms for drugs for money triangle thing that's going on, and why are we involved in this? I thought we were supposed to be the good guys. And Ollie North gets put on trial, and then he gets a show on Fox News. And now he's a hero.
Sean Hannity refers to him as a national hero, by the way.
Sean Hannity is a full-blown retard.
He's also CIA, wears a little CIA lapel.
He does wear a CIA lapel pin.
And that wouldn't be there. That would not be there on national television if that was not there for a reason.
It's crazy.
Isn't Ollie North, isn't he in the marijuana business too? I heard like he's making money off marijuana stocks or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure he is. Well,
probably.
And Freeway Rick too. Freeway Rick's got a marijuana business now too.
Yeah, and Sunland. He owns yeah. So I'm glad about that. I don't know who invested it, because that guy had a hard time trying to find his way when he got out, because there was nothing left for him. And man,
So when I was in college, I was in college at USC, South Central Los Angeles, in the early, from 90 to 95, right when Freeway Rick got arrested and got sent away. And we were all like, holy shit. Like, we were hearing about the legends of Freeway Rick Ross and how much cocaine he was selling and everything. And so I meet him at Acapulco, and then I wind up on the same plane with him. So we've got a layover. And so I'm talking to him. I'm like, hey, man, can you settle some questions? I said, my roommates and we used to talk about you. And like, we heard all these crazy ass stories, and I just want to run them by you. And you tell me if they're true or if they're bullshit. He's like, all right. And I said, I heard that you wore your fingerprints off because you were counting so much cash. He's like, that's partially true. He's like, I would get infections on my fingers from it, from counting all that cash. And so they'd split open and everything. And so, yeah, I'd have my fingers would be all fucked up. But he's like, I didn't lose my fingerprints or anything from it, but my fingers would always be screwed up. He goes, what else? And I said, we heard that at the height you were making $2 million a day cash. He goes, that's bullshit. I was making $3 million. I was like, fuck.
I'm going to use that line. My fingers are infected. I've been counting cash all day, babe.
Yeah, man. I politely let him know that I was not going to go through customs right behind him, even though I was right behind him. I was going to let someone else go, because I was like, I don't really want to go through customs, have him thinking that you and me are together. He's like, but
I came back from Colombia and I got stopped right away by DAA twice.
Oh, I
was going back into Vegas. They're like, yeah, this guy went down to Colombia, got some freaking Johnny Hey-yo, and so they're trying to grab me, and I'm like,
oh yeah, you definitely.
I was observing their election, pal. I ain't grabbing no white.
You definitely
sunshine.
Don't want to go through security with sweaty palms on the Bogota to Las Vegas route.
Gee, they stopped me right away. Like, get over here.
Get over here, Whitey.
I was wearing like a jumpsuit too, so I was like Italianed up as can be. Like, yeah,
Jesus.
You in the two-piece Puma outfit, get over here. Empty your pockets.
That's funny. All right. Let's wrap this baby up. Let's make sure that everybody gets a chance to let people know where they can find you. Let's start with you, Zoe. It was great to have you on Macroaggressions. I hope everybody will check that out and check out thrillkillmedicalcult.com. Is that the website? Is it functional now? I know you've been under attack massively and you always find a way to persevere. So what's the status of that? Is that the right place?
That is the right place. Yeah, it is still up. I actually got an email from someone in China that said they're trying to register all the other admin names. I think it's a scam. They're like, well, if you buy all these domain names, it's like thrillkillmedicalcult.io, thrillkillmedicalcult.iu, like all these derivatives. They're like, someone's actually trying to buy this. So if you don't buy this, then they're going to get it and we can't really stop them. But yeah, so for right now, it's thrillkillmedicalcult.com. And the payment processor is working. And what I was holding up earlier, this is my newest invention. I think it's going to be a new fad. And I may even bring this down to Acapulco with me. I'll see you in Mexico. This is the audiobook recording of my book. I did the recording myself, so it's narrated by me. And this plugs into your phone. So you can get the full audiobook. You can just put it in your phone. Ooh. And it also has the ebook and then a movie trailer promo that I did. It also has a regular USB thing. And this, I think, is uncensorable. It's a physical media. So it's a different way to sell a book. And I think this might actually catch on. Musicians are starting to do this for albums. Just hand it to someone. Like I know Grant Presence, he handed out like a USB drive for his album. That's how I got his album. So I thought, I bet you could do this for an audiobook. And that would be like uncensorable. You can pay in cash if you want to, if you find me in person. I'll also ship it. So I ship these. So yeah.
Well, I wish Graham had stayed on the call because he's running adultbrain.ca, which does audiobooks, and he's the voice of one of my audiobooks as well. So
I think Miriam could use that too.
Yeah, Miriam could use that. She's got a big book too. Yeah, it takes yeah. I think we're probably, because we're forced to look for different avenues to get our information out there. I think it's frustrating in the short term, but in the long run, it's good for us to be paranoid and think like this and have these solutions. And for you to say, I'm just tired of being censored. How can I get around that? It like sort of motivates you to find a solution to this. That's fantastic. Yeah, take those with you to an Acapulco. If nothing else, it's proof of concept. That works. That people are interested in that. By the way, when you held up the gold back earlier, I saw a bunch of those at an Acapulco this year as well. A lot of people were actually doing business with them. It was nice to see. It's all theoretical until you see people transacting, obviously there with crypto, but to see goldbacks being used, pretty cool. So thanks, Zoe. Brad, what's cooking? What are you working on at Propaganda Report?
I'm just trying to deconstruct the news as best as I can. It can get overwhelming sometimes and even a bit demoralizing when it's coming from every direction. But I just try and as unbiased as possible, knowing that nobody can be completely unbiased. And I tell people don't ever. I'm going to say things that are wrong. But I'm going to do the best of my ability to try and together deconstruct things and do it through a comedic, a fun lens. And talk to Ricky today. It was a lot of fun, and that's what I do at Propaganda Report. That's the podcast on the podcasting app. Propagandafight.com is my website. All my links I'm on all the platforms. If you go to Twitter at Freedom Act Radio, all my links in bio, no feet pics, and just try to have fun in a crazy world. Thanks for having me on, by the way. I always love talking to you guys.
Oh, it's good to see you, whether it's through Zoom or in person, like we did in Nashville.
That was great. And, so much fun.
Great for people to get to these live events when you can connect with like-minded individuals and remind yourself that you're not insane. Speaking of that, Dave, Nature Boy, host of the Third Rail podcast on Friday nights. We're going to do it again, but this time in Puerto Vallarta, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I've got to actually. I'm waiting to meet with Kat before I make my travel arrangements. So
Cool.
hopefully, she'll say, "Yeah, I can. We can use your help." And either way, once I meet that meeting, then I'm going to go get the hotel rooms and all that stuff like that. And Zoe, have you been really quick? Have you been in Acapulco before?
I have not. This will be my first year.
It's
Yeah.
going to change your life, baby.
It's a lot of fun. It's great.
Yeah, I have to
Good
even
vibes.
get my passport. So
Yeah,
but
I know.
I
Get your
booked
slave
everything. I
passport.
got like a great Black Friday discount. I never buy anything on Black Friday because I'm so anti Black Friday. But they actually had a really good deal, and I saved so much money. That was the way to go.
Fantastic. So, Nature Boy,
Yes.
wait, who did you had Sibel Edmonds on?
I did last Friday. Sibyl Edmonds.
How was that?
Fantastic. It was
I bet.
better than I could ever hope for. She's coming back.
She's
on
a
the scene.
boss, man.
Oh my God! You talk about
She's
she said
legit.
my husband told me I'm not just type A, I'm type A plus plus, type A plus plus.
funny.
I'm like, yeah, baby. When she latches into something, she's like a pit bull. She don't let go.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the wrong end of her, man.
No. So, everybody out there, check me out. I'm on X at The Real Nature Boy. My show, The Third Rail with Nature Boy, is broadcast live every Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find it on Rumble. You can find all the audio podcasts wherever they're sold. And thanks for letting me come on, Ricky. Charlie, I really, really did come on here, man.
It's good to see you.
Likewise.
And it's fun doing Third Rail because you've got a lively live
The
audience.
mosh pit.
It's
Yeah,
very fun
it's-
too, and I would like to nominate you, Nature Boy. Sorry to interrupt, for best voice in podcast.
Oh,
Read me
he's
a
the voice
bedtime
of the
story, my
OBDM's
God.
intro.
Live from the New Kingdom.
I have to second that. It's very Manilow-esque.
I mean, listen, man, we've been pimping Dave out for Midnight Mike had him do the OBDM intro, which is a classic.
Point me to your ASMR channel, dude. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're gonna get a bunch.
You know what?
You'll get 1 million subscribers doing that shit.
Well, you know what I was thinking? I was on
They're
Blunt Force.
whispering.
I was on
freaks.
Blunt Force of Wisdom, and Miss T, I don't know if you guys check that out. She said something about, she's like, God damn. I said, yeah, baby, this is the deal. You need to write some of those like Harlequin love romance books, them women books, and I'll voice them. We'll make a killing. So,
You should read the Daily News in that deep, like, goddamn voice like that.
oh, the hairy white
For
voice,
sure.
drop it down, get about as low as it can go. Yeah, baby doll.
It's certainly echelons apart from RFK Jr.'s smut readings.
Oh,
I became friends back when I was living in Vegas selling real estate. I became friends with Barry White's widow, Glodine.
Whoa.
Sold her a condo. She was cool as shit. But I was like, no, she came in when she was like, I'm like, no shit. Husband was Barry White. Yeah, she'd have me over to their house and everything. She Barry used to play this piano. Crazy. Pasta, what's going on when you go on these trips? Do you raise money in advance? Like, how are we? Is there a way
Usually-
for people to help out with the financing
Yeah.
of this? Or, I mean,
Yeah. You've
what's
been
that?
a part of that before. Like before I went to Cuba, I remember for that particular situation, I was just taking
Yeah.
baseball equipment, and you sent me a few bucks, and a couple people
Yeah.
sent me a few bucks. Usually, it's weird. I'm in a weird kind of situation, right? I know it's been like this whole last year. I've been very sick, so I've kind of like, just try to exist. Like when I saw you guys in Nashville, I was on a bunch of prednisone trying to figure it out. So it's been a very weird year, and I am coming around. I have turned the corner with my health. So that's great.
Good.
But I mean, we went from, we were doing the Convo Couch for almost like, we're still doing it, right? So I was doing the Convo Couch with my business partner, Fiorella Isabel, but then we kind of went our separate ways. I went and did the morning show. I moved to Vegas, got the hell out of California during COVID, moved to Vegas with Steve Poikonen. Started doing AM Wake Up. She went to RT. Then I started doing some work after I went up to that show for Jimmy Dore. So we didn't spend as much time and energy as we did on our own project and our own channel. And when we did that, and the reason why we did that is because we've been demonetized on YouTube for quite some time now, like close to 5 or 6 years, whatever it is. We would raise money. We would use Give, Send, Goes. that sort of things, all the other avenues, PayPal, Venmo, whatever we got to do to raise money. We would throw a fundraiser before we're going, hey, we're going to Honduras in 3 weeks. Help us out. Go to the Give, Send, Go. And usually, that's the majority where our money comes. We grab a few bucks and then we got to go where we got to go. A lot of the observation situations, they have the states, the countries, they do election observations. They have people come in where they pay for your hotel and your food. You just got to pay for your flight to get there. So that helps out a lot. But a lot of times they, in this particular situation in Honduras, we never had anybody respond back to us. And that was kind of odd because we were there 4 years ago with the Libre Party, and we did some great work. So you never know what's going on. You never know if you get help, but we do generally use fundraisers. We're trying to kick back in the Truth Wire, which is the Convo Couch. We've changed the name, try to get our monetization back. It hasn't worked yet. We still have lawyers looking into what we can do, but we're going to kick it up. We're going to crank it up as much as we can. I don't know what the future lies for me. Like I'm saying, coming out of this it's been a 2-year craziness. But I'm still here, and I'm still getting to come on Union of the Unwanted. I still do my radio show Wednesday nights on WBAI from 4 to 5. I love it. It's one of the best things I do. It's a call-in show. And Greater New York, such a huge audience, picks up the phone, calls in, whatever we're talking about that day. We have great conversations. I do the Truth Wire Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays with Fee, depending on our schedule, usually around 12:31-ish. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'll sometimes go on Matt Wineglass's The Homeless Left. And I'm still doing every once in a while. RT calls me to do a little segment spot. I'll still go on Crosstalk and whatnot. So I'm just kind of existing right now. And, always in my profiles, there's always a link to get to me, to give me a few bucks to help me out to do what I got to do. Like I said, we're going to really rev that up next year, including a trip to Nicaragua for their elections, which should be very interesting because, the Honduras thing, and the United States wanting to get Honduras back, it's not a coincidence, right? They got Bolivia back. They got the Evo Morales, the leftists, the socialists, they're gone, right? They got the next party in. They got the conservatives back in, very close to the United States. They want to get some of these other countries back. A lot of these countries, they want to get into these countries. They might not have a lot of resources and whatnot, but they want to stop their alliances, their military alliances, their trade alliances. They want to cut Venezuela off. They also want to stop them from doing business with China. So Nicaragua's in the target zone. Honduras is there right now, and we'll be in Nicaragua next year. But yeah, just go to YoPasta at YoPasta.
People can donate frequent flyer airline miles to you.
Is that possible?
I don't know. I think you can, can't you?
Can you like do that?
Transfer miles?
You gotta ask Tripoli that
I think you can, yeah. It's not easy. You have to have the person's personal information. So I'm
yeah, but
if someone do that,
someone wants to float you a plane ticket to Nicaragua, with some air miles before they expire that they're not going to use. Like, holy shit! Like, think about it. I mean, like what you and I were talking about before with the Cuba, the baseball stuff. Like, it's a small thing, but like you and I both love baseball. We know that Cuba's known for baseball and those kids and everything. So it's like a small gesture. Obviously, it's not going to stop the suffering, but you do what you can. And so I'm glad you're feeling better. Let's start there. It was great to see you in Nashville. I know that you were there. You weren't feeling your best, but you were still there and rocking it. And
that was you not feeling your best. You were working your ass off cooking for us. That's unbelievable, dude.
How those chefs are.
So he was there to help.
Savages in the back. Maniacs. So he was half a maniac.
You did all the work. I just chopped stuff. That's all.
You helped me out big time. You helped me with the sangria. The sangria is very important stuff. And that was a lot of fun because cooking for my friends, there's nothing better. And I'm still cooking a lot today, and I can't wait to cook for you guys some of my pasta. I really want to get that done for you guys.
Yeah. Well, Alex, what are you working on? Where can people find you?
Well, first off, before I get into it, I wanted to give a little shout out to Martin Bali for giving us this lovely 3D printed Campbell's meat. It's been quite a week. I wanted to give him a little love. So I do co-host of Pardon Will podcast, libertarian culture war type shit. We record every Sunday night, live streaming to YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble, and Yards After the Catch, drinking shithead buddy podcast. 5 or 6 of us each week. Just talk sports, talk the NFL. So just keeping a nice balance in my life.
That's
and
amazing.
I will be at LP National in Grand Rapids in May with my delegates here in Connecticut. So looking to enjoy my autistic compadres. It's going to be a great time.
No better place to find a Fed than at a Libertarian National Convention. I'll tell you that.
That's my favorite game. Spot the Fed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always one.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, good to see you again. Graham Dunlop from Grimerica dropped off. He was here. You can go to adultbrain.ca and check out their audiobooks. They've got all kinds of a ton of stuff that you maybe heard of, some old-timey books that maybe you don't want to read. They've got them. They're also the voices of The Octopus of Global Control and Hypocrisy. So I love them, and they're fantastic. So if you're interested, go to adultbrain.ca. What about you, Ricky? What's cooking? Who have you been talking to recently on Ripple Effect?
So I actually just released my conversation with Brad today. So the
nice.
most recent Ripple Effect podcast episode was with Brad Binkley from the Propaganda Report. We did a massive show, 2.5 hours. We talked about everything and anything. We started on one topic, ended in another. So those are the best and funnest conversations. So it was really a blast. And then recently I had Rob Dew on. And then I have a couple episodes that are recorded and not released yet, but hope to have them out very soon. One with Graham from Grimerica and his co-host. I had the Grimerica guys on, so you can check that out. That'll be a fun discussion that's coming out very soon. And then also one that I'm really excited about. I had returning guest Steve Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group, I think is his organization. He's been on. This is the third time he's been on. Phenomenal conversation. This guy's kind of a OG in the disclosure community. He was the first official ever UFO lobbyist. He was the first registered UFO disclosure lobbyist in American history. So that's always something that's fun. And so he's been in this for a really long time. So just getting his take on what's going on in regards to disclosure and the new documentary, The Age of Disclosure, which everybody's kind of talking about, and I can't recommend enough. I definitely recommend people checking that out, and also the recent podcast that Rogan did with the filmmaker Dan Farah. I forget how to pronounce his name, but phenomenal. Definitely check that out. And and then I got some music stuff that I'm working on. Theory 6, the solo music project that I'm working on. Follow that everywhere. And what else? I think that's about it. And then I got some shows in the pipeline that I'm working on with just getting guests on, and work slowing down a little bit for me in the winter. So I'll be able to pop out some more shows more often. So I'm really excited about that. And the rippleeffectpodcast.com.
Stephen Bassett had a quote called The Jigsaw Puzzle, and it's in my octopus book. I have 700 quotes from 500 different people. That is my number one favorite quote in the book. It's about 4 paragraphs long, and he lays it out in a way. And I just every time I read that, it just reminds me of what we're up against in the disinformation, the intentional disinformation, and we have no idea what is really going on, like what's actually happening. And it's
funny. I told him about that because he's been on like 3 times now, and I couldn't remember if I ever told him that. So I told him on the air that I'm like, hey, Charlie Robinson from Macroaggressions and the Octopus book. I'm like,
I've never met him.
You're quoted in the book, right? And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, you could tell he was like honored that he was
my favorite quote. Anyway, I'll read it some other time.
Well, you got to get him on, and because
I should. Now that you said that, I'll reach out to him because I've been dying. I really want to talk to him.
The topic, maybe we should do it on the next episode, but like we should really dive deep into a disclosure episode.
That'll get Midnight Mike out. Speaking of that, Midnight Mike is on assignment fighting the New World Order and doing doom scrolling with Sam Tripoli and the funniest podcast in the world, Our Big Dumb Mouth. So check that out. live Wednesdays and Saturdays on Twitch, and I don't know. I don't know where else.
I think they're on YouTube, right?
I don't know if they're streaming on YouTube. Maybe they are. Who knows? OBDM is the best, so check it out. And Macroaggressions, the episode right now this week with Zoe. Check it out. We get into these motherfuckers during COVID. Man, you're going to be so infuriated when you listen to it. You're going to be educated, but you're going to be infuriated because and we can never forget what these people did. They are not going to be allowed to paper over this and pretend like, go all Rumsfeld on us and just no way. They need to pay for what they did. And so anyway, I hope people will check out that episode and support Zoe's work as well. And macroaggressions.io is the website for me. Also, activistpost.com. If you're not getting your news there every day, how dare you? Go ahead and bookmark it. Works well on mobile, but I didn't build an app, so you're going to have to just pull it up as a browser. I think that's about it. samtripoli.com. Tinfoil hat, go check it out and catch Sam when he comes to your town to do stand-up comedy, to tell jokes for money.
He's
to strangers,
great live.
dark room.
Great live, Sam.
Great live. You shared the stage. There's 4 of us here that we're all at the Nashville event, which is great. I hope more people will go to those events when they come through, or support someone like Sam if he's in your town and you've got nothing else to do on a Friday night.
Well, when Sam's in Connecticut, if you want to hang out with Alex and I, we'll be there. We're always down there.
He's always out there with Eddie Bravo, right?
Yep. And Mark Steves. Shout out
to Broadbrook Opera House.
Yeah.
The spot
Mr. Sean Lanning keeping it tight up there.
Yeah. So if you're in the New England area, every time he's in town, you can count on us being there. Come hang out.
You just do an informal meetup. That's what we did for the Barnum World premiere. Legal Man did a meetup for his followers at a bar right next to the theater. So when the movie was over, we all just went to the bar. And next time Sam comes to town, just just make the word known, meetup, and then just throw a party like at a bar next to wherever, or maybe even in the place wherever he is. And
well, that's kind of what happens. It becomes a bit of a party at the place. And, it's fun. It's always cool to connect with people in person, as all you guys have experienced. Also, shout out to Bart Sabrell, who's been on this show, a friend of mine who's been on my show a few times. He just released a podcast on the Danny Jones show. He's in a debate. They released it today. Check it out. He's debating somebody who I believe works for NASA on the moon landing. So that should be interesting. And then our boy Joe Rogan was on Jesse Michaels. That was also just released, I think, this weekend or today. And Jesse interviews him about the UAP and the disclosure and all the people that Rogan has had on his show on the topic, and people that are pushing misinformation, disinformation, the people who are legit, and everything in between. So that's a fascinating one. Charlie, anything else?
No, that's it.
That's it, guys. Hopefully next week, our next show will be live on YouTube if Charlie and I can figure it out like 2 idiots.
We're retards.
Thanks again, guys, for coming on. And if you guys want the links to the show, let me know. Feel free to post it and share it anywhere and anywhere. That's it's open source, and it's fun to get people. Get the conversations out there to new and different people. So enjoy the rest of your Monday, guys. Hopefully we have you on a future episode.
See you, Ricky.
See you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me on.
Ricky, I can hear the music in my head.
You know what's funny? The music started playing out of nowhere when Charlie was doing the outro, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And then for some reason, it was like inputted in Pro Tools in that exact moment, and it just started playing. And I was like looking around, like, where is it coming from? Yeah, sometimes some coincidences, you don't know, man. Maybe it's a higher
synchronicity.
Power. Yeah.
Later, guys. Great seeing y'all.
Later.